because I'm...
Hello! I think we're live. Welcome to Dive into Worldbuilding. Today we're doing first sentences, which is going to be a little bit different from some of our topics, but this is, I think, going to be fun. We're talking about what makes a good first sentence and why do we put so much effort into first sentences and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think we should start by talking about why first sentences are so important. Why are they important? Do we care? Yeah, we care. Thoughts?
Well, that's the thing. I don't usually notice the first sentence in and of itself. I mean, for me, it's more like the first few paragraphs. If that doesn't hook me.
I think people read differently, to be honest. I think for some people, they just say, I'm going to give myself to this book or story or whatever it is. And in they go. And so the first sentence might not stand out particularly, even though, you know, classically we have lists of things where, oh, yes, you know, Moby Dick has this amazingly famous first sentence.
Yeah.
Ishmael, you know, like, okay, it's really famous. Okay. For a long time I had no idea why that would be such a famous first sentence, but I mean, it's a command that stands out at least. But I think that there's also an argument to be made that a first sentence is literally your gateway into the story. And so even if, like, you don't have to do anything that's super, super freaky exciting, but you have an opportunity there that you might not want to miss, right? Because it's the first thing that your reader is going to learn about your story, your world, your character, your everything. Everything starts with the first sentence. And I believe it was my friend Janice who was at a workshop years ago now at the Surrey International Writers Conference, and one of their guests was Donald Moss, and he had a workshop on the Thursday night before the conference started, and he asked everybody to give him their first page, and he would take a page and read the first sentence, and he goes, okay, do you want to hear any more? That was eye-opening.
Yeah.
And I think in some sense, if you're a writer, it's useful to think that way on some level because that is the way at least some agents think. The people who have the most to read are the gatekeepers, right?
Yeah.
And so they're looking for any excuse to gatekeep you, right? And so in that context, thinking about your first sentence can be very, very important. Yep. So, I'm writing my notes, because if I do all the talking, then I'll never have a report.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm one that reads differently. I'm less looking for something to hook me than I'm looking for something to throw me out. So as long as I don't hit anything that says stop reading.
Yeah.
That's different people.
All right. So one of the things that we kind of chatted about when we were talking about first sentences last week, and I can't even remember if it was on the video or not, so I'm just going to reiterate because it is officially part of this topic, and that is one of the things that can make a first sentence engaging. Well, so one of the things you want to try to do with the first sentence is make people curious to read on, right? What makes people curious? Sometimes it's setting up a mystery. Sometimes it's asking a question. Sometimes it's showing a character with an incredible attitude that they wonder who that person is. Sometimes it might be showing a view of something that's so incredible and intriguing that you just have to keep reading to figure out what it is, right? There are lots of things that can make a person curious and make them want to read on. So, but attitude is definitely one. Mystery. You don't want to say, oh, I have to set up my whole main conflict mystery in one sentence, but at the same time, that's what, in a way, that's what we're talking about when we talk about hooks, right? So I was trying to think. Well, I mean, I have a whole stack of books here. So why don't I read some first sentences for you? So I have The Heir of Kored by Deborah J. Ross. First sentence of this one is, if there was anything worse than a fool of a husband, Lycian reflected, it was a royal fool. That one's all on the attitude.
Yeah.
Right? It also orients us. There's an orientation obligation too, right? So it's not just attitude, but there's also a sort of orientation. How much do you want to orient somebody in your first sentence, right? A fool of a husband shows you she's in relationships from the moment you first hear her thoughts. That stuff is useful. The word royal in the first sentence says, oh gosh, we've got nobility. Oh, nobility is here. Right?
Yeah.
That sets up certain types of expectations that a person can then follow up on by reading on. Yeah. So I enjoyed that one. I enjoyed that sentence. I'm writing down the books I'm using. Okay, so then I have Archangel by Marguerite Reed. So, chapter 1. First sentence. Well, you know, it's interesting, it's intriguing, because it's not always chapter 1. In Heir of Kored, it's actually a prologue. But, okay, chapter 1. The second time I saw a beast, I was visiting Moira Jimenez, the wife of the governor of New Albuquerque. That one is a really interesting one. It's less full of attitude, but it's still got a hook, if you can see the hook. What do you think the hook is on that one?
The New Albuquerque?
New Albuquerque? Sure, New Albuquerque, we wonder where that is, but I think it's the second time.
The beast.
Yeah, the second time I saw a beast. Now, beast is actually capitalized here, so we might be curious about what a beast with a capital B might be as well. But you've also got the implication that there was a first time this person saw a beast.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's a little mystery that Marguerite Reed is just sort of dangling out there for us. In the very first 3 words of the book, and she doesn't actually pick it up for a while. But it's very interesting as a hook, I think. I'm always intrigued by little words that, you know, that make you go, wait, there's something else here that I should be looking out for.
And it orients you to the voice. I mean, you're clearly in first person.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yuppie-dup. Oh. Here's some fun. Awesome. Henry Leanne has just contributed some sentences. That's awesome. I will use those in a minute. Cool. All right, so the next book I have here is 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I love this one. This one's fun. Let's start with the end of the world, why don't we?
Yeah.
Tons of attitude.
Tons of attitude. An internal contradiction.
Yeah.
Starting with the end of the world. That one's just delightful. Let's start with the end of the world, why don't we? It's almost like it's also breaking the fourth wall a little bit.
Yeah.
It's almost addressing at you as a reader. Yeah, I just think that's very, very intriguing and has lots of hook to it because of that contradiction. Because you're going, wait a minute, how do you start with the end of the world?
No.
Right? And then the voice where you know you're listening to somebody because they're talking to you.
But it's almost lighthearted. So why would the end of the world be lighthearted?
Exactly, that too. Lighthearted end of the world. Yeah, really, really fun, that one. All right. Doing some more. This is fun. Okay, this is a Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. You're all very different. Okay. We slept in what had once been the gymnasium. That one immediately says disaster to me.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't sleep in a gymnasium unless something terrible has happened. But it's
interesting. What had once been the gymnasium?
Right.
If we slept in the gymnasium, there's a lot that could be.
There's a lot that could be, yeah. True. That tense
change. What had once been the gymnasium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can sleep in a gymnasium that's still a gymnasium after a disaster. That's one option, but it's definitely the tense that makes it more certain, right?
Yeah.
What had
when my college band went to Mardi Gras, we slept in the facilities of a school that was closed for Mardi Gras.
Right, right.
I think we slept in the hallway, but still, we used the showers and whatnot in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because they had to accommodate all these out-of-town people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are a lot of questions set up with that. Why is it not the gymnasium anymore?
Yeah.
Why are they sleeping there? Who are they? Three questions right off the bat. Definitely. All right, next one's Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. And this one's actually a little different from some of the ones that we've had previously. The body lay naked and face down, a deathly gray, spatters of blood staining the snow around it. That's it.
Yeah, that's a good entry.
Yeah, if something terrible happened to this body, right? Yeah. I guess that's what you ask. You go, oh my God, what happened? and who is coming upon this? It's very interesting to me how many times we get the question who along with the question what.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's really critical because one of the things that you want to have is you want to have a sense that you have a protagonist and a sense that you have a story that you want to pay attention to, right? And so there are all kinds of different reasons why you could pay attention to a story and care, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that one, the actual description is almost clinical, objective.
Yes, it's very objective. Yeah.
But
you almost kind of go, well, is this a detective? Is it a, I mean.
Yeah, it's almost like the opening of a murder mystery.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
So I guess that almost depends on our experience with storytelling conventions.
Yeah.
Because it makes, well, who is this person that's being so clinical and objective about a dead body?
Yep.
Although there's actually nothing that says it's a human body. I mean, it could be an animal.
Nope, that's true. That's true. Yep.
I hadn't even thought of that, like it not being human, and that's silly because it's speculative fiction, but I think the automatic assumption is,
well, it is kind of
going to be a human, yeah.
Well, that was my assumption until literally while I was talking, it dawned on me.
Well, it's fun because there's a lot of stuff that you kind of assume when you read something like that. And when you're in speculative fiction, that's not necessarily an assumption you're going to be able to maintain beyond the first sentence, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a topic for another day.
Yeah,
honestly.
well, I mean, something has to follow that to go, like, tell you if it's human or not.
Right. Well, I mean, no, something has to follow that if it's not going to be human.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Because if it is going to be human, then your operant assumption is likely to be correct.
Yeah.
People aren't going to come into that going, oh, it's not a human body.
Right. Because it could be aliens.
But it's really important because if you have a default assumption like that, and for some reason you aren't going to maintain it, you have to act on that really, really quickly. Because it doesn't take much more time for that operant assumption to become very fossilized in a reader's mind. So you gotta catch them while it's still soft.
Yeah.
So. All right, what do I got next? Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I've watched through his eyes, I've listened through his ears, and I tell you he's the one. That's science fictional from the very, very beginning. And there's attitude there, and you're wondering how somebody can look through somebody else's eyes and listen through their ears.
Yeah.
And of course, the one.
The one is very loaded.
The one for what, there's always an intention behind the one. I mean, you don't necessarily have the savior of the universe, but still, this kid, we don't know he's a kid. Whoever this is has been chosen. He has been chosen for something. The chosen one. It doesn't have to, the first sentence doesn't imply that there's any massive greater significance to that. But people don't call other people the one unless they've got something in mind.
Right.
Right? And so the question is, well, what do they have in mind?
And I'm trying to tell whether I'm getting it from my knowledge of the story or from that line. But some implication that there's a selection or winnowing out from a group.
Oh yeah, well, if you choose somebody, generally there are options before you choose somebody. So I don't think that's a bad implication to pick up from there. All right. Harry Potter. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. I love that one.
that tells you something about the setting.
Yes, definitely.
It's a very British tone.
Well, right, and you've got titles that give you information. Mr. and Mrs. is not used in all kinds of speculative contexts. Number 4, Privet Drive is definitely a way of describing a certain kind of neighborhood, right? Yeah. And it gives you a sense of their attitude. Proud to say they were perfectly normal, thank you very much. We're perfectly normal, thank you very much. It's the thank you very much just adds an entire new dimension to it.
Yeah.
Because
it's very British, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
It does sort of. I mean, it has that attitude as well, because they obviously very much just want to be normal.
Yes. And, you know, you've already got that sense of methinks they do protest too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it very much tells you that the story is going to be about not being normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun, you know, how many different things you can pick up from a first sentence like that. And then I've got one here that starts with dialogue. This is Seen a Light of Blood and Honey. Got one of the elbows, sir.
Elbows?
Got one of the elbows?
Yabos.
Yabos?
Yabbos.
Okay.
Yabos.
Got one of the yabos, sir.
That sounds very police.
It's very police, yeah, and yabos is a very distinct word.
Yeah.
I don't know that many countries in which yabos is used. I know it's used in Ireland, and I know it's used in Australia.
Yeah.
But it's very localized.
Yeah. I think it would, like most Americans, like you would instantly, like you'd have to be Googling that, because I don't know specifically. I've heard the word before, but I don't know in what.
Well, you know, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Because you could Google it.
Yeah.
My kids are always asking me questions when I read to them. They're always going, "But what is that?" And usually that question is addressed in the very next sentence.
Yeah, that's true, hopefully.
You know,
there are a few that aren't at times, though.
No, there are instances where it's not addressed. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you can often actually pick out things and say, okay, this may be addressed, and I'm going to let it float in my brain for a little while.
Yeah.
And because in a way, this is what we're doing. This particular word, yabos, is one that has a real-world localization to it.
Yeah.
Or if you Googled it, you'd actually be able to find out the information. But we're speculative fiction here.
Mm-hmm.
So those words are not necessarily going to be things you can Google productively. Right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of speculative fiction readers have developed the talent for letting those kinds of words sort of float without judgment for a few minutes, seconds.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I have like my first sentence for my failed children's book.
What are you talking about?
Oh.
There shall be no failed. The first sentence of the children's book you're working on, yes?
No, I'm done working on it. It's over. It's been rejected by everyone already. It's done. Actually, it sort of comes into that because it was more specific than like my opening line for my retelling of The Light Princess, which was just description. I mean, incredibly short description. But that one, like the Bird Fairies one, actually has something going for it.
Well, I don't want to hear about what it's got going for it. Why don't you lay the sentence on us?
All right. Tweety perched on top of the for sale sign in the front yard of her house. Her skinny bird toes curled around its edge.
That was 2, but we're good.
No, there was a comma.
Okay.
That was a comma.
Oh, I see. It's a dependent clause.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. Tweety, huh?
Tweety.
Tweety.
With a D?
Tweety with a D. Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm intrigued by the name. For sale sign in front of her house orients me quite well.
But yet she's perched on top of the sign.
Yeah, she obviously knows what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some information there. She's got bird toes, and yet she knows what a for sale sign is.
Yeah. I put it in the chat.
I see it.
So. Suppose I could get rid of the second her. Oh well.
You sound demoralized, but this is not bad stuff.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if I edit it more, because, like I said, it's already been rejected by
there's a lot of
everyone,
stuff that you can wonder as you read this.
Yeah.
You can wonder if she's clinging to it because she doesn't want it to be sold, or I mean, there's a lot of potential implication there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it actually, I think it's cool. It's a good sentence.
Thank you.
Yeah. Definitely. You want to give us one, Glenda?
Okay. Dardith Hated Festival.
I didn't even understand that.
You get closer to your mic.
Dardith Hated Festival.
Oh. Dardith Hated Festivals. Okay, I get it. Sorry, I just didn't even, I didn't parse it the first time.
Yeah. I wish I could access the chat bar, but
Oh no, that's still not coming up for you? Oh man.
Well, she's
No.
on an iPhone.
Oh yeah.
on an Android tablet instead of my desktop.
Yeah.
But I got it, Glenda. I got it, and it was a short one, so I don't have to scramble to write it down.
No.
Yep, you've got attitude there. You've got a world where festivals occur.
And that's a capital F festival. So it's not just any festival.
Okay. It's a capital F festivals. So now we wonder what the festivals are. And
Yeah.
probably not in our world because Dardith is not a name that we use a lot. 3 words, and we've already learned quite a bit, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it has attitude. Oh, I almost forgot. This is the sentence that I told you about. I told you that I was inspired by it, so I'm going to read it to you. In spring, it is the dawn that is most beautiful. That's the first word of Sei Shonagon's The Pillow Book. And she is full of opinions. Right? It's almost like a description, but yet not, because it's telling you not that, well, there's a dawn going on, or that it's spring, or that it's beautiful, but that when you're in the spring, the thing that is the most beautiful, and you should know this, is the dawn. So make sure, honey, that you're staying up or getting up early because you don't want to miss it. I mean, it's already engaging with you immediately, directly. This was written 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
1,000+ years ago. Right? And it still reaches out from 1,000 years ago and says, hey, you know, when it's spring, you better be getting up early because Right?
Nope, nope, nope.
Yeah, there's something there, right? And of course, the other one that I cited last time we spoke was stealing eggs is a lot harder than stealing the whole chicken.
Yeah.
Which I always have to mention in a first sentence discussion.
Yeah.
Because I just love it, right?
Yeah. Well, okay, I've got another one. Technically,
okay, play it on us, Linda.
Technically, this is 2 sentences, but you'll see why.
Okay.
Okay.
No change. Nothing except rocks and a baking sun.
Okay, so that's almost like a dash or something?
Yeah, I've got it written as 2 sentences, but yeah, I could make it a dash or something.
Yeah, it's or you know, yeah, that's the kind of thing where well, you know,
a lot of really short sentences at the beginning, and at least a couple that aren't necessarily that interesting. But it's like either too late to fix now, or I'm just not editing because my brain is off.
Because you're not motivated to edit. There we
go.
go.
Oh my god, so very much not.
So, let's see. What else shall we do? I was going to see if I could find you something. Here it is. Well, okay, so here's an interesting one. Do you consider the first sentence to be different if there is a little envoi? Like for example, the way that Dune puts a little quotation from something before the narrative starts.
No, I think the first line is the first line. Usually if you've got like a quote, it's usually like in service of.
Yeah.
Like it's presented, the quote is usually presented, I mean, if it's a nonfiction, I mean, if it's someone quoting an actual something, then it's just an actual something that is meant to illuminate the text. If they've made up quotes, they're presenting them as factual, and still therefore just in service of the larger like chapter, but they're not, I wouldn't necessarily consider them part of, like I wouldn't consider that the first line. I would still consider like the first line.
Well, good. That's what I think, but you expressed it better.
Okay. That was terribly inarticulate, so I don't.
No. All right. Well, so I'm just actually kind of curious because my story that has called Mind Locker has an opening that is like an envoi. And so does Soul's Bargain. So I've obviously done this more than once. But Mind Locker starts with a rhyme, which is not exactly narrative, but it's not exactly not narrative. So the rhyme starts it is, she's a night walker, she's a child stalker. That's the first one. That's the rhyme, though.
Yeah.
If you go down to the beginning of the first scene, then the first sentence is, Fingers comes to see me.
Yeah. But you're still like, I mean, like, I guess I feel like, I mean, quote, like whether it's rhyme or poetry or like a line from like a book, real or fictional. I mean, it's still sort of in a way set up. I mean, a first line needs to be followed by other lines. Otherwise, it's just an isolated incident. So You know what I mean? Like a first line needs to be part of like a book or the chapter or whatever. Something has to follow it. Otherwise, it is just a sentence.
Well, I hear you. I mean, we are talking about first sentences here.
Yeah.
But in the case of the envoi for Mindlocker, what it's trying to do is actually establish a lot of things about the setting and the protagonist.
Yeah.
Because it sets up the idea that the protagonist is that this involves kids. Right?
Yeah.
And that this is kind of it's a nursery rhyme about somebody who's going to steal you, right?
Yeah.
So, because Fingers comes to see me, Fingers is like a nickname, and you wouldn't necessarily know. I mean, it could be out of Dick Tracy, right?
Yeah.
If you
God, you're right, it could be.
That it was a child.
It sounds very hoodlum.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to.
Yeah, yes. It really is.
Repeated in sounding very hoodlum.
Mafia, very mafia nicknames, everybody, right? And like the irony being he's already had like 5 fingers cut off, right? So,
well,
like those weird mob nicknames are just making fun.
No, but like, so, you do kind of wonder why somebody would get the nickname Fingers.
I would assume it's because they're like a good pickpocket or safecracker or something.
Well, she actually has 6 fingers, but you don't find that out until later.
Oh, yeah, that too. The missing fingers. That's always a good one.
Missing fingers,
Yeah.
dexterous fingers. There are lots of reasons why, but there is a why that right?
Yeah. Yes.
So, let's see. So I'm going to not use that one because we talked about envoi already. Here's one from my Clarksville story from last year, Steta Mono de Wanai. Cram school psycho was just a bully's insult until I started hearing the voices.
What's the very first word again?
Cram school psycho.
Yeah.
Cram school psycho.
Well, because I watch enough anime, I automatically know it's Japan. Because it's like, oh, cram school. Okay.
Well, that's true. I mean, cram school, if you know the term cram school, then you're likely to know that it's Asia at least. Right?
Oh, yeah, I suppose they have them elsewhere, too. Like I said, my automatic association is anime, because
mind you, we haven't
watch
talked
so
about titles.
much of it. Yeah.
And the title of that one is in Japanese, so there's a logical connection there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
I mean, we talk about first sentences like they're the first thing that you encounter, but really they're not.
Yeah. Oh, God, I don't want to talk about titles.
Narrative as opposed to your entry into the story.
I need someone else to write my titles for me. They're
well, we'll talk about titles another time.
Oh, God, please don't.
Titles can be really hard. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
The only decent title I have is when it was given to me as a writing prompt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so,
mine are usually, unfortunately, literal in their names.
Well, sometimes things will title themselves and sometimes they just won't.
My things never title themselves. I start off with a working title and then that ends up the title because I can never think of anything else.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I find that sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like my novels right now, they're not titling themselves. They're just not. They're like, okay, fine, and I have to work really hard to find titles for them. Not that I mind. I mean, I don't mind doing the work, but
yeah. Well, like, even when you come up with a title, the publisher could want to change it anyhow. So it's like,
that's why we
why
should
bother?
on titles and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, one of the things that titles are doing is establishing the genre of the story for a reader, which I think is a really important thing. So I'm going to write down titles, and we will talk about it sometime. I hope you're okay there, Glenda. Bless you.
Find out in a few days.
Yeah. So, well, okay. So do we have any more things that we want to talk about? Let's see. I wanted to mention one thing, which was, oh, that's right. I have some sentences from Henry, and I don't want to let him down by not mentioning them.
Yeah, let's hear them.
All right. Let's see. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being childbirth, this will be a 3. Yeah. Okay. This is from, let's see, this is from Miranda July's collection. No one belongs here more than you. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I think that's definitely interesting because of pain.
Yeah.
And this will be a 3. So everybody brace yourselves. And then you do wonder who's saying it and who they're saying it to.
Yeah.
Which, and using the childbirth as the top of the scale.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be a reference for a man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one of them's going to be female, either the person speaking or the person being spoken to. Or both.
Mm-hmm.
But at least one of them. At least one of them. Here's one more from this list that Henry gave me. Now that I know, it seems so obvious.
I think that's something we all say, like, to ourselves a lot.
To a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
I know. But it is sort of very universal in a way, you know, because you're always like, well, looking back, I should have known, you know, or like, that was so obvious if I, you know, thought for 5 minutes, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it does imply a state of learning, right? I figured something out, right? And it doesn't tell us what was figured out. So of course the first question is, what did you just figure out? Right?
Yeah. What is it?
Yeah. What is it anyway? I mean, yeah, for sure. All right. Let me see if I can find one more, because we're wrapping up. All right, here we go. Opening this up. Here's one from mine. This is from my story called The Liars. If it was possible to make a security area adorable, Toy Paradise had done it.
Aww. I want to go to there. Oh my god.
Yeah, I was happy with that one.
Yeah.
Because we, you know, I think in part one of the reasons why it gets you is because we are all so familiar with security areas at this point.
Yeah. And we all hate them because they're annoying. Like, all you think of is, like, the airport.
Uh-huh.
Oh, mother of God. You know, like, going through the airport. You know, going through airport security, you know. But then you're like, well, what would adorable airport security be? Like, how awesome would that be?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, but I think if we weren't all quite so familiar with security areas, I think it would be less emotional.
Yeah.
Still, though, I mean, security areas do imply a certain concern for safety and that kind of thing, which does set up a contrast with adorable, right?
Yeah, because they're usually boring and horrible and like just something gray.
Right.
And a room or some kind of horrible long line. There's nothing to look at.
Right.
You know.
And it says something about the kind of world that would have a security area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the inherent contradiction, I think, is always intriguing when you have an inherent contradiction and you want to say, well, that inherent contradiction must work on some level for someone or they wouldn't be using it, and it makes you want to figure out how that works. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, awesome. And here we are, and it's 5 minutes to 4. Well, I have really enjoyed this topic, and I'm sorry to cut out, but I have obligations this afternoon that are going to make me have to run. Thank you for playing this game with me, you guys. I mean, it is kind of a game in a way.
Yeah.
But I think it's fun to explore these things, especially when one word here or there can make such a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And we will do titles sometime. But next week we have a guest.
Okay.
On Thursday.
Oh boy, okay.
Thursday, and I think it's 11 a.m., but please confirm with my online stuff. Thursday, we will have Laura Ann Gilman here talking about her book that's coming out, Silver on the Road.
Okay.
Very cool stuff. So that should be really, really fun to talk to her. And so thank you for coming, and I will see you next week, hopefully.
Bye.
All right, bye.